I think, I started with this idea of sort of these two communities that were very unequal. I had done a lot of work after college in East Palo Alto, which is on the other side of the tracks from Palo Alto, where there's Stanford and Facebook and an unbelievable amount of wealth. And even to this day, East Palo Alto struggles, but in the late 90s, it was the homicide capital of the country. And so I wanted to place my story in that kind of environment. Here's my dog. I have these two teenage boys who are just so loving and so warm and so want to be part of a family and want to contribute to their family, to their life, to their society. They're just amazing. I have amazing sons. Our oldest came to us when he was 18 and aged on a foster care system. Our younger son came to us when he was 14 and ended up in the foster care system. So I had that experience like Letty of sort of showing up one day at home and having a son that I didn't know at all, right? And that's really what happens to Letty. She wakes up, her parents have left her and gone back to Mexico, and she has a son that's hers, but that she doesn't really know. And so I really drew on that experience a lot. My brother-in-law is a climate scientist at Stanford. And so when I came up with this idea of Enrique and the feathers, I went to him and said, is there anything you could do with feathers? And he was like, there's so much you could do with feathers. Let me tell you about them, And so I learned about the isotope signatures and how they're a timestamp for where they've been and when, and it was fascinating. So I love that about fiction. I mean, in order to create a world, you have to know a lot of things. And for me, I said to my mom, if I just wrote about what I know, they always say, write what you know. I don't know what that means, because for me, if I write what I knew, I'd be writing about a white middle-class girl from a small farming town in Northern California for like 10 books. Like, that's so incredibly boring. So I think you have to expand what you know, right, before you write. Back then I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have a house cleaner. I would call my mom and say, I'm kicking the dirty clothes out of the hall so that I can physically open the door to my office so that I can sit down and write, and like not everything got done, and that was just how it was. But now, because of the success of my first book, I have a full-time assistant and she's fabulous. And I always tell people that, because I think especially for women, I would kind of hem and haw with my mother and say, I feel a little guilty, I have an assistant, I should be doing everything. And she said, if you were a man, you wouldn't be questioning it. You would say you absolutely deserved an assistant, because I think as women, we still feel like, a more of a responsibility to our family and our career. And certainly that's a blanket statement. And there are some men that feel absolutely as committed to their family as their work, but I think women still struggle with finding that balance. So for me, the balance is I have a lot of help, and I have fabulous help, and then I commit myself to the nonprofit work, the books, and my kids.